Hi, Patty.
Hello, Shamil. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Uh, 2020 has been a very tough year with a worldwide pandemic, a divisive U.S. presidential election, leaving many of us wondering, can't we all just get along? And with the election behind us, and America needs healing, and nations like ours around the world long to find hope again. And I am very pleased to welcome Shamil Idriss, CEO of Search for Common Ground, and to describe for us his organization and their new campaign, My Peace, Our Future. So, in today's tumultuous political climate worldwide, how can we eliminate violent conflict to create a stable playing field for everyone?
Well, Patty, thank you for having me again. And I think you're absolutely right. 2020 has been and still is a really difficult year, literally for billions of people. That's no exaggeration, given the global pandemic and everything else. And so our campaign at Search for Common Ground, My Peace, Our Future, is intended to do precisely what you just mentioned, is to inspire hope and inspiration, but also action to move us closer to a world without violent conflict where we can live together across our differences and solve our shared problems. So, if your viewers go to sfcg.org /my peace, they can find out more about My Peace, Our Future, and how they can take action. But to answer your question directly, the way that people work through and societies work through dividing lines like what we're experiencing today and that you just referenced, um, is by oftentimes looking at the local level, the issues where people actually live, where they send their kids to school, where they make their livelihoods. If we just focus on what's happening at the national level or global level, we can get really wrapped up in what seems like impossible divides that we can never bridge. But when we look at the local level, we find that communities actually solve their problems very regularly without resort to violence and through cooperation across their political, racial, or other dividing lines. And so, My Peace, Our Future is really intended to remind people of this and to give people the option and the opportunity to take action to make that more peaceful world for all of us.
Isn't it just like, a journey begins with one step? I mean, taking small steps locally, working with your local community, your local politicians, reaching across the aisle, so to speak, and, getting to know other people instead of, just listening to their rhetoric.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, none of us wants to be defined by the most extreme thing we've ever said or the worst thing we've ever done, right? None of us wants to be defined that way.
Right.
So it's helpful to try not to define our adversaries that way either. Having said that, the differences that are being debated in this country and in other places around the world are real, and for some people, they're even life or death. And so I don't want to minimize how important the differences are. What we don't do at Search for Common Ground and what our campaign, My Peace, Our Future, is not intending to do is in any way to push or force or manipulate people to bridge these divides when they don't want to. But we are convinced that if you give people the opportunity to do, as you've said, to get to know one another first, to get to understand where actually we might share a lot of the same aspirations, some of the same hopes and fears, even, then that can be a starting point for cooperation. And over 40 years now, we've developed in some of the most challenging areas of conflict around the world, an approach called the common ground approach, which really starts at that very basic level, which is bringing people together to find their shared humanity, to identify areas of common concern or shared interests, and to start cooperating around those. And once you start that cooperation, those relationships really can deepen over time, and you can start tackling even some of the tougher issues that seem impossible at first.
Well, tell us about the My Peace, Our Future campaign. It sounds so interesting, with young people, entering their submissions about how they have, their personal visions of peace and dream of doing more. So
Yeah,
how's
so
that been going?
Yeah, no, thank you. We're just launching it today. And if
Oh,
your viewers go to sfcg.org /my peace, they can see how they can take action. There are a couple different pieces of it. It starts with, as you said, people around the world literally giving voice to and expressing what peace means to them, and more concretely, how their lives would be different, if we lived in a more just, equitable, and peaceful world. You can't be something until you envision it, right? So just starting by giving people that voice to envision what it is that they want, and then there are different aspects of action that people can take on their own, in their own communities. There's also a role for world leaders to play. We talked about, and you mentioned rightly, the importance of working at that local level. Leaders can set the tone as well. And so, if people go to sfcg.org/my piece, they can also sign a petition urging world leaders to set that tone for cooperation. Things work a lot better everywhere in the world when adversaries sit on the same side of the table and face a common problem, rather than just sitting across from each other, facing each other as the problem. And essentially, that's what my piece, Our Future, is encouraging people to do at the local level, all the way up to our world leaders.
Well, I mean, I'm sure everyone around the world is waiting for 2020 to end. It's been such a crazy year. But, now that we can kind of look forward to 2021, the UN Year of Peace, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, our experience, we've worked around the world in places as diverse as, Sierra Leone and Myanmar and Tunisia, places, frankly, that have had elections just as divisive and even much more so than what we've just been through here in the States. And one of the things that we've seen in terms of how you can make that year of peace more of a reality, is that there really is a role for people at every level of society to play. You said that it starts with a single step, and I absolutely agree with you. Sometimes people feel like, well, what difference can I make? Um, it makes a tremendous difference when people reach across the dividing lines in their own communities, when people listen to somebody with respect, even when they totally disagree with them, when people model that kind of behavior for their kids, for other people in their community. One of the biggest things that we're seeing is that one of the most important steps for anyone to go through to feel welcome in any diverse community and to be willing to engage constructively in that community is having the experience of being heard and respected, not necessarily agreed with. Somebody can completely disagree with you, but if you have the sense that they actually listen to you and they respect you, and they say, I disagree with you, but I really understand where you're coming from, that makes a huge difference in people's willingness to engage across our differences more constructively. And so anybody can do that. In fact, in the social media age, which oftentimes doesn't feel like the most peaceful age for people, all of us can do that, in our daily lives many, many times. I think these steps are not inconsequential, and when they're added up across people around the world, and I frankly think, given what you just said about 2020, which is so true, um, I don't know if there's ever been as common a human experience, literally, as the COVID-19 pandemic,
It
anytime in
kind of
human history.
touches us all around the world, doesn't it? I mean, so that
Yeah.
makes your organization so important because, you are global and you are reaching out to various areas of conflict, it sounds like, and around the world. I mean, I know in the U.S. we always like to think the world revolves around us, but, in reality, there are plenty of other places that probably could use your peace building and your process a little bit more even than in the U.S. So how do you plan to educate the next generation of leaders to find common ground and unity, even if they do profoundly disagree?
Well, it's a great question. People sometimes forget how much young people, across time, across history, across cultures, have always been at the forefront of driving major change. Um, Gandhi was just 24 years old when he started his activism in South Africa. Mandela was just 25 years old when he started that youth wing of the African National Congress. Martin Luther King was only 26-year-old when he launched the bus boycott. And so young people have always been, and we're seeing now Malala, 15 years old, the youngest Nobel laureate ever. So we're seeing young people increasingly take these steps towards creating a more just and peaceful world. We launched a program this year here in the U.S. called First Year Connect on college campuses because we are convinced that if you give young people the opportunity and just a little bit of support, they will actually take the lead in setting a new culture for dialogue and cooperation, for living together effectively with our differences while dealing with the very real injustices and the issues that have bedeviled our society for a long time. So First Year Connect works with young people on college campuses to give them that experience and to offer them the support to reach across the racial, political, and other dividing lines, to find common ground, and then to work together on that basis. And so we're very excited about it. And again, if people go to sfcg.org/mypiece, they can also share the steps that they are taking, in their own communities, whether they're young or old like me.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Shamil Idriss, for giving us hope in these divisive times and helping shine a light on a way forward that we can find unity and a way to move forward together. Thank you very much.
Patty, thanks for the platform. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.